Hello, welcome to the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. I am your host, Roy Kessel, and today we are very excited to have with us special guest Brian Swift. Brian is the founder of Swift Outdoor Accessible Recreation, and it's going to be great to hear about the incredible work that he's doing here around the Chicago area and all over. So, Brian, thank you for taking time and joining us on the show today.
Roy, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to it, and I love the work that you're doing.
Well, we really appreciate that you're involved with Sports Philanthropy Network. It was a pleasure to have you with us at Sports Philanthropy World. I know it adds so much to the event, but I want to start before we dive into the work that SOAR is doing. I want to back up to but when Brian was a young boy and have you tell us what's your first memory of sports and what got you excited?
Well, I grew up a gym rat, and not a lot of people understand what a gym rat is. So my dad worked for the Chicago Park District. So a lot of days I would go with him to work, and he was in charge of so many Chicago parks. So while he was doing his work, it would be like going to the gym and play. So you pick up a basketball, or you go into the gym and there might be ping pong tables set up, and there might be a volleyball court set up, and you played sport. You played with whoever was there. So you went in there and you might have shot hoops by yourself. You might have shot hoops with somebody 10 years older, 7 years older. As I got older into probably my early teens, you were playing basketball with guys, easily 10 years older. Or on nice days, you'd go out and you'd play 16-inch softball, which is a kind of a dying sport, but you'd go out and play softball with guys 10, 15, 20 years older. And and learned early back in the day, they don't take it easy on you. Like, they didn't care that you were 15 years old and they might have been 25. They didn't play light for you. So you learned like truly about competition.
Well, and it's something that brings people together, right? You had an opportunity for most of us
Absolutely.
when we were growing up, the people that are that many years older, right? Even in school, 2, 3 years older in school is like a different generation when you're in
Absolutely.
elementary or middle school. And even in high school, right? 3 years means somebody's a freshman when you're a senior. It's like, yeah, they're not part of my life. So sports is something that breaks down that barrier and brings you together.
Absolutely. And it transcends anything that seems today to get in society. You played with young guys, old guys, people of color, people of different nationality, and it brought you together. There was no identifying somebody a certain way. You were either teammates or your opponents. You know what I mean? And the team came together because, I mean, nobody steps on a court, a field, to lose. So you work together for a common goal, and that's to all play well and win.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting when you talk about that, right, is it doesn't necessarily matter what sport. Obviously, there's some
No,
sports that are easier to compete as a younger person with people of different ages, right? And but people will give you a chance, right?
oh yeah,
You prove it on the field, on the court, and people will treat you based on that. If you
yeah.
are respectful, if you understand the game, you understand the sport. So take us through kind of the progression as you grew up. What sports did you participate in?
So your major three. I mean, I played little league in Chicago. At that time, I lived in the Gage Park, Marquette Park area. So my first little league experience was at Marquette Park. For those that know the city, and then we moved to Burbank, which is like right on the cusp of the city, and they had football because I went to a parochial grammar school. So it was, football, basketball, and baseball. Although, I was so used to playing softball too that I remember getting guys together to play 16-inch softball, which is a truly Chicago I don't want to say invention, but I think it is. And 16-inch softball is just truly one of there are guys in their 60s and 70s playing that can hit the ball like in a crazy way that a 25 in their youth can't do. And it's another game that transcends age and background and whatever it does. So it was, we started playing sports, more organized, obviously with the schools. And then, when you weren't playing with the school, because it was only a 3-month thing back in the day, you played, football season was 3 months, baseball season was 3 months. They kind of followed each other. So, and then I took that into high school, and when you weren't at high school, and we still loved playing 16-inch softball because you needed two things. You needed a ball and a bat, right? I mean, that's all you needed. Yeah. In another game, anybody could play.
And for those of our viewers and listeners that aren't familiar with 16-inch softball in Chicago, think of regular softball with a ball that's considerably larger and gets a little soft and mushy as it gets hit. The clincher softball was the prototype ball and had a little shell that would get cracked after it gets hit a bunch of times. But you play without gloves. And the reason it developed in Chicago was because a lot of the city parks didn't have enough space for normal softball, 12-inch softball, where people could hit it a lot farther. So the ball doesn't go as far. And unlike most softball where you can kind of hide somebody at first base, in 16-inch softball, first base is one of the hardest positions to have somebody that can grab that ball coming from different angles or bouncing in. So it's a great sport. I played for many years in Evanston and in the city.
Yeah. And even though they call it softball, this ball is responsible for breaking and maiming more fingers, especially if you played third base or first base. I mean, I got a baby finger that won't straighten out, I mean, that yeah, I mean, it is responsible for damaging more fingers because it's not soft until about months into the game, till it's been hit and hit and hit. It is hard, but you played it with your hands. You needed a ball and a bat, and you could play, all day.
Yeah. So as you progressed like through life, right? We all play as a kid, we play everything, and then we tend to focus as we get into high school or during college. Right. I played a lot of different intramural sports. So take us through like what you enjoyed and which sports you participated with.
Sure. So, football was probably more my passion. And then basketball. So, into high school, you joined a football team and joined the basketball team. And back then, obviously not everybody made it. I went to St. Lawrence High School. We had a huge student body. So, you really had to rise and succeed to play. So that being said, I didn't play baseball in high school. I didn't have time, wasn't good enough to play baseball. But, again, football was my fashion. I was a good sized young man. And then basketball. So my senior year came, and the day after Christmas on holiday, I was at the park playing football with about a dozen friends. And when you grew up in the city, you kind of some people had like a turkey bowl. They got together with their buddies over Thanksgiving and would play a game. And Christmas, you kind of had a game. Well, we were playing, and I was running with the ball, and I got tackled. And nobody. It wasn't a hard collision. I actually got tackled from behind because I am not the speediest of foot. So I was always getting caught from behind. And nobody fell on my neck or my head, but that was the last time I'd walk. And what happened is I broke my neck and I became a C6 quadriplegic. So at first paralyzed for the first, say, 3 months, paralyzed from the neck down. So, my playing days were over, my walking days were over, and man, it's a new reality for you. And as I said, I was 17 and went into the Christ Hospital, and they had to take a bone out of a hip, fuse my neck together where it was broken, and then from there I went to the RIC, Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, which is now the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which back then and now were like premier rehabilitation facilities in the country. I mean, they were the best of the best.
I can't even imagine the feelings, the pain, the heartbreak of going through that, for somebody like yourself that was so active and so involved in sports, and being told that, as you knew it, at least sports were no longer going to be part of your life. So the rehabilitation process must have been grueling. When, as you went through that, when did you start feeling some hope for yourself?
I never spent a lot of time perseverating on what I can't do. Don't get me wrong, in the darkness of my own room, I had some tough times. And really, my parents, the faith of my mother, and this old school love drive of my dad was just move forward. Let's, don't know where it's going to end up, but they make it pretty clear that, you're a C6 or a C5, whatever level you are, these are going to be your abilities. These are things that probably you won't do again. I mean, I know I wasn't going to play football, and there's always that hope of maybe walking again. But I was a pretty realist, realizing probably not going to walk again because of the severity of my injury. And, sports wasn't going to be the same. Life wasn't going to be the same. And, I just kept therapy was something I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave. I just thinking I'm going to do everything that I could do to give myself the best chance to live a decent life, because I didn't want to be that statistic. Now, this is 1979. So, we didn't have the technology today. They didn't have, the way they treat a spinal cord injury today is way different. We didn't have cell phones, computers. I mean, you were kind of in your own mind, and if you weren't in class, because the first couple of weeks I couldn't move my arms. It probably took 2 months to be able just to feed myself, so you were not just struggling about what you couldn't do. It was just a struggle to even, because it wasn't fun having somebody feed you and help get you dressed. I mean, there were things you just did your whole life you wanted to be able to do.
Sure. And I can't imagine how difficult it would have been for your family as well to watch you go through that.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You talk about the rehab opportunities now, and as you said, it's very different than the technology that exists today. You mentioned computers and cell phones, really, that can bridge the gap. I think we've all seen, sort of since COVID, that the
Absolutely.
reality of being able to interact and engage is less dependent on mobility, but mobility is always critical. So I'm interested, as you went through that journey, when did you decide that you were going to take this direction of creating SOAR?
Well, there were several points. So a big turning point, and I got to share this story about my dad, who I love dearly, and I know he loved me. He came up to the rehab probably 3 months in, and I must have been having a bad day. And I didn't have a lot of them. I was really blessed. He came in, he took off his overcoat, hung it up, sat down at the table I was at. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, he stood up, went over, didn't say anything, grabbed his overcoat, put it on, came back to the table, and he looked down at me. And he was like, if I come up here and you're not in good spirits, if you're not smiling, I'm going to turn around and leave. I'm not coming up here to see you in bad spirits. He said, it's your responsibility to be happy. It's your responsibility to be up, and it's your responsibility to keep this family going, because as you go, this family goes.
That's a lot of burden and a lot of pressure to put on a 17-year-old that's just gone through a traumatic injury.
It is. And it didn't hit me at first, Roy. I just listened to the words and I kind of understood it. And he took off his overcoat, sat down. We finished having a discussion and I think eating a little bit. And that was it. That was it. I mean, he put his coat on when we were all done, got up and left. And it wasn't until that night I was like, damn, you know, I get it, and it is my responsibility. And that was a real pivotal moment for me. I knew I wasn't going to break this family up because of my injury. I wasn't going to make it
Yeah.
a miserable existence for everybody. And that really changed the way I thought of things. So, I got out about a month later. I went right back to high school because there were like 3 weeks left, finished high school. That summer, I took a class at junior college. In the meantime, he had set up our garage with all this workout equipment so I could go into the garage and do therapy every day, which I did. And finished high school. I went on to junior college, still doing therapy. And after when I was graduating from junior college, I was getting the itch, like, to compete. Like, I missed it. And so back then there wasn't as many sports as there was now, but and being a quad, there's less sports than for paraplegics and tetraplegics and amputees. But I found at Marion Joy, another rehabilitation facility out in Wheaton, they had a swim team, they had track and field for quads, and RIC, the rehab facility, had quad rugby, which quad rugby is a combination of hockey slash basketballish. It is basically, 10 wheelchairs on a basketball court playing with a volleyball where you have to pass it or dribble it so often and get across an end line. And so it is collisions. I mean, it is like bumper cars, but I love that. I mean, I love
Yeah.
that
It's
competition.
amazing to watch some of these wheelchair sports, and people think that there doesn't have the same power and impact and collisions. I remember the first time we saw a wheelchair football game at the Super Bowl and at the NFL draft through the Bob Woodward Foundation. And you're walking in and you're hearing these impacts and you're like, holy cow, like these athletes are really hitting
Oh,
hard and crushing it, and the dexterity that you need to maneuver the wheelchair and be able to throw the ball and catch the ball and everything
yeah.
else. It's so impressive.
I was as competitive then as I was on my feet. If I got on that court, I wanted to win. I wanted to knock you out of your chair. I wanted to compete. And as you put it, athletes who play, whether it's football, basketball, other, sled hockey, they're out there with the same intensity to compete.
Yeah, and that's what we love, right? I always talked about sports. It's not the act of throwing a ball or hitting a ball or something, right? It's the competition. What drives us
Oh,
is the competition and playing against people and proving who is better on that given day, right? And
and
it's incredible, and giving those athletes the opportunity. And so you look at what you've accomplished. I think your dad's message to you, though it may have been a tad harsh at the time, right, is a good mindset. mantra for life and the way you've lived your life in terms of creating energy for people and creating that positive spirit. So when you decided to launch SOAR, what was the deciding factor that said now's the right time to do this?
Yeah. So, I went on to college. I finished 4 years of college. I went on to law school, finished 4 years of law school. In the meantime, I used to hunt and fish, and I was able to get back out and do those things. I also started doing long rides in my wheelchair and started doing 5Ks and 7Ks and 10Ks, just pushing my wheelchair. And I realized I was like that was such a healing process. In the meantime, also, I started coaching football and basketball at my old grammar school and moved on and started coaching in high school. And I realized just getting out and being around people and those things you loved really helped me heal. It kept me away from negativity. It kept me away from depression. It kept me away from all the negative things that happen. So after, and then I started working in corporate for about 20 years, and I started to realize how many people don't have that opportunity to get out and play sports because they don't have the money for a wheelchair, go fishing because they need special equipment, go do whatever they want, archery, photography, because they needed special equipment that insurance didn't pay for. And I have been blessed to be able to do so many of these things. And I talked with my wife, because at that point I was married, and said, I'm so blessed. We need to start a foundation to help people, to bridge that gap, because insurance doesn't pay for all these special equipment that you need, which is not cheap, to help them get outdoors. That's part of what's prohibiting them. So we started a 501c3, obviously called SOAR, where we help people get the equipment they need or collaborate. I have friends in Florida, they have accessible boats. If you want to go deep sea fishing, their boats wheelchair accessible. If you want to go snorkeling or just in the water, they have lifts on the side of their boats. You want to go snow skiing, I can collaborate in Colorado with people. So on top of being able to help them pay for an accessible fishing setup, to help them pay for an outdoor wheelchair, to help them pay for that outing, that's what we decided to do, is to help people get
Yeah.
back outdoors, because I believe healing
And
happens
I think
outdoors.
that's a really important point, Brian, which is the two things that we always hear about participating in adaptive sports, right? Number one, it's the cost. And number two,
Yeah,
it's frequently the transportation, right? Or the access to
absolutely.
a facility or location that they can do it. I don't think people typically understand how expensive some of these items
No,
are. So maybe give people a few examples of wheelchairs and other setups of what those
sure.
things cost for an individual.
Like a good basketball wheelchair, which is set up different. It's got cambered wheels, it's got small casters, it's got something to help not tip. A good basketball wheelchair could cost $7,000 to $12,000. Insurance doesn't cover that. Why? They consider it a non-necessity. A
Right.
quad rugby wheelchair, same thing, about $7,000 to be able to play quad rugby. They think it's a non-necessity. You could look at sled hockey, a huge sport growing tremendously. A good sled with the sticks and the stuff they need, that could be $4,000. They don't have an accessible fishing reel and rod that they can attach to their arm and all the gear. That could be $700-800. Some people don't have that, just to be able to do something as simple as fishing, a hand cycle that gets you out riding with your family or your kids. A good hand cycle is anywhere from 3,500, all the way up to 12,000 if you want to start to ride competitively. That is all money.
Right.
People don't have that disposable income.
Well, and you think about the gap there, right, in those types of costs, right? For a regular person that's not injured, right, that's healthy to play basketball, they need a ball, right? You can find basketballs from whatever, $20 to $50 or $70.
Right.
You want to ride a bike, right? A few $100s,
Yeah.
right? And it's such a big difference, and it's such an impediment to people's opportunity to participate. And we talk about that positive spirit and energy, right? The science is clear that exercise is crucial to
Absolutely.
physical and mental health. And so providing these opportunities is enormous. So help our audience understand, in addition to financial support, which obviously is always an item that is welcome and needed, what are other ways that our network can help support the work that you're doing at SOAR?
As I tell people, check out my social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Even sharing our posts is huge. Keeping us in mind, where if you're out somewhere and, here we are at the end of the year. This is when corporations do a lot of their giving. You may be at a party and hear of a corporation that's like looking for a nonprofit to give funds to help. Keep SOAR in mind. Obviously, giving is a huge part, but if you don't have the money, there are other ways to support us by sharing our posts, keeping us in mind if you know of a company, or intentionally reaching out. Hey, I know a VP at a company. I know they practice corporate giving and whatnot. Reach out for us. And see if do they give to 501c3 nonprofits that do what we do. That would be huge.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I know that it's really important to reach out and to get those opportunities. And so I encourage everybody. We've got on the screen there, soarnonprofit.com. You can reach Brian at bswift62@comcast.net. And Brian is very accessible and very open. As he said, social media is such a huge way to get that message out. There isn't a cost to like, to comment, to share.
Right.
It gives such a depth to accessing new networks of people that aren't familiar with some of these stories and the work that Brian is doing. So, Brian, we appreciate you taking time to be here with us today. We value all of the work that you're doing. I know it's so important, so critical to lives to make people and give them that opportunity. So thank you for the incredible work.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate the kind words.
And to wrap up, we want to just have a little bit of fun here. So we're going to try and use our sports philanthropy superpowers. We're going to wave our magic wand. And we're going to ask you if we could appoint you as commissioner of any sport. What sport would you like to be commissioner of?
Football.
All right.
And
so now you've kicked Roger out of his office at 345 Park Avenue in New York, and you're going to take over. What's the first course of action? What change do you want to see?
I would like to see no automatic first downs for a 5-yard penalty. Defensive holding, automatic first down. It could be 3rd and 20. No, if it's 5 yards, give them 5 yards. If 5 yards doesn't give them a first down, then they don't get a first down. Or 5 automatic penalties. There's 2 or 3 penalties that lead to automatic first downs. There's nothing automatic in life. Just because the guy interfered with somebody doesn't mean he would have caught the ball. So I want to see automatic first downs gone.
Okay.
I want to see spot of the foul on a 40-yard pass where there's some interference. I don't think they should get the ball. We've all seen guys drop the ball that should have caught it. Make it a 20-yard penalty. Make it a 15-yard penalty. But I hate spot of the foul fault because you're assuming he's going to catch it. You can't assume that. We've seen it. So those are the first 2 changes I'd make.
Yeah, and I think the thing that hits me, right, the counter argument to that is always that if you let the cornerbacks and the athletes are so good, if they know it's only a 5-yard penalty, right, they're going to be holding and yanking people down all over the place, right? And it's third and yep. I think the one that is so hard to officiate on interference is those underthrown balls where the DB's chasing and then
Yes.
the ball's not getting anywhere near the receiver. If the DB just stepped off the field and walked on the sideline while the ball's in the air, the ball would land 10 yards short of the receiver. It's so hard to judge whether the ball would have gotten near him. You see interference called on balls that are 7 yards over somebody's head and 10 yards short, and you're like, that doesn't deserve a call.
And I thought at one time they used to call, like, no, it was uncatchable.
Yeah, uncatchable.
A ball that's underthrown, especially, and you see them 6-7 yards, it's uncatchable, right? Come on, they're running. There's no way their momentum's going to get them back. That's a great point. I would like to see those gone. And I know it's a judgment call, but I think it's an easy judgment call. When the guy throws a ball 10 yards over somebody's head, when he turfs it 5 to 7 yards before him, you could say with 99.9 degree certainty, they're not being caught.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard environment. That's a hard setup. And I agree with you 100%. So Brian, thank you for taking the time to be with us, and for all of our viewers and listeners. We appreciate you taking time to join us on the Sports Philanthropy Podcast. This is your host, Roy Kessel, signing off for Sports Philanthropy Network. Please remember to live generously. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. I love what you do.